Welcome to Las Vegas, Nevada, inside the UFC Apex, the brand new UFC Apex. My name is John Morgan with MMA Junkie. Dan Tom, the fight analyst, is with me. First of all, let me just say, before we get to too much, let me tell you where we are. We were here in production run through earlier. They're calling this area the kitchen. Okay, so if you've been familiar with the Contender Series, you know at the end of the night, the fighters would get brought into basically the kitchen area, and they would get set on a countertop, and we would all sit there and watch them and await their fate. Well, it's going to be a little bit different. It'll be this little area tonight. So an upgrade already in the Contender Series, a little bit more polished, refined statement there. But I love the fact that they're still calling it the kitchen, because here in just a little bit, this is when these fighters will find out who's getting a UFC deal.
Yeah, thank goodness it's not looking like the break room at many of us remember at work. So, you know, we don't need to identify with the fighter that far, perhaps. So I do like the upgraded kitchen that we're using here.
I dig it. The rest of the facility, you're going to be seeing it tonight. We went through a tour of it earlier, and I can just say it's overwhelming. It's huge. It's massive. It's just barely getting filled out. But the part that they have already, it's pretty breathtaking, to be honest. It's obviously technologically as advanced as you can get. But I think the one thing that Dana White kept saying over and over was, yes, we're in this much more refined place. We're not in the Ultimate Fighter gym anymore. That place is gone, as historical as it was. But we're still going to keep the rawness of it, right? There's not going to be walk-in music. It's still, I think, only limited to about 200 people in the gym tonight, mostly friends and families. So it's still going to have that very, very raw feel. These are not UFC fighters yet. These are fighters waiting to hopefully make their way into the UFC.
Yeah, definitely raw feel. I mean, even, you know, I hope this comes across in the production, because when we were in there, we were commenting ourselves on the acoustics of the building. So yeah, we're still getting that intimate feel. So those of you that were in love with that old feel, or maybe even some other venues here in Vegas, like the Pearl at the Palm, it's like you're getting a hybrid of both almost, it feels like.
When you talk about the acoustics, it's very, very quiet in there, right? There's not a lot of echo and noise. So I think even the 200 people that are going to be clapping and cheering, it's going to be kind of absorbed in there. So it's still going to be kind of that very, very raw, intimate feel. I know in the old Tough Gym, you know, you could hear the fighters' feet moving across the canvas, that sort of thing. You know, like you said, that really, really intimate feel. But we should say, okay, that's the intimate side of it. The difference is world-class facilities in the back, right? Whereas before, there was in the strip center, and they were all crammed into little closets and that sort of thing. This time, you've got actual, you know, locker rooms. Everybody's got their own space. There's mats to warm up on. I mean, it's a lot better a feel for the athlete, I think. I think, you know, as somebody yourself, Dan, that's actually done the deal and gotten in there and competed, I got to think that an athlete, yes, they know they're trying to fight in the UFC, but they're going to feel pretty special when they just see everything that they're being a part of tonight.
Yeah, I remember having to shadow box and warm up with my opponent, like looking right at me, like, what, in front of this guy? And, you know, but no, it's true. Like, even actual fighters like Paul Felder were commenting on it, saying he's at the UFC level. He's fought on many stages, top regional promotions, obviously the UFC, and he was like, I'm really jealous of what these fighters get to prep like. He said he wished he could prep in one of those rooms even.
It's weird. I think it's twofold. On the one hand, I could see it being incredibly nerve-wracking, right? Like, oh my gosh, I know I'm almost in the big stage, but what does this feel like? But on the other hand, I could see that if you weren't motivated enough, if you didn't already feel like you were getting a taste of what it could be like in the UFC, to come in and see this world-class facility. Again, the Ultimate Fighter gym, it was full of history. We had seen Rampage tearing down doors and all kinds of cool stuff there. But then when you get a taste of world-class facilities like this, I wonder if that even just kind of drives you a little bit more.
I got to imagine. I got to imagine for the fighters, especially first and foremost. But I feel like the crescenting of the ship, the breaking the bottle on the stern of the bow, if you will, that's got to be. You mentioned it just now, John. The doors. When the first fighter hits those doors, I think everybody, whether you're a fan or you're a fighter in the back, you're going to feel it at that point. Like, it's on.
No question. All right, well, we appreciate everybody that's watching us on MMA Junkie. Of course, these are going to go live at the top of the hour. That's 5 p.m. local time, Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. So you still got time to sign up for ESPN Plus. If you haven't done that, that is a change. Obviously, it used to be on UFC Fight Pass. Around the world, it's still going to be on UFC Fight Pass. But if you're in the U.S., it's going to be on ESPN Plus. So you want to maybe get signed up for that. Dana did tell us, the UFC president Dana White, did tell us later that there may be a second season of this later on. If so, that one might air on Fight Pass. They're trying to do 2 a year, but you want to get on ESPN Plus.
Yes.
One other, I guess, important thing to note, usually 5 fights a night. Tonight, there's just going to be 4. Leon Shabazian and Brock Weaver. That was your 5th fight. Unfortunately, that got called off. Shabazian. First time, by the way, in Contender Series history that we had a weight miss, or I guess we still didn't get a weight miss because he didn't even make it to the scale, but the fight was waved off. So only 4 fights tonight. I think that's interesting, too, because, I mean, listen, I see these guys, right? They're all in the locker rooms. They're saying, wish you the best, bro. Want everything to go well for you. You know, I hope you get that deal, too. But in the back of your mind, you got to be saying, that's one less person I'm competing against.
That's true, and that's one less person they're competing against. But depending on how that bout order, how early they saw that bout order, they're not going to have a lot of time back there to really analyze the competition of the field. I mean, they really got to, and like we just said, they're going to have the facilities to do so, but they really got to focus and dial in fast tonight.
Yep. All right, no question. All right, let's talk about it. As we start out, we'll start out in the heavyweight division. Alton Meeks comes in with a 3-0 record. Yorgan De Castro 4-0. So 2 undefeated heavyweights. To be honest, probably a good way to get things started, right? I mean, another note, by the way, and I wasn't sure until today, they did keep the small cage. You remember the old gym had the small cage, 25-foot cage. The actual UFC cage is 30 feet across. I know that may seem like a kind of a, inside baseball kind of thing, but it does make a big difference in fights, right? I mean, the amount of space that you have to work with is very different. So here we are, we're talking about 2 undefeated heavyweights, and they're fighting in that small cage.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote the stat, but I believe the percentages jump up a significant amount, at least as far as if you're tracking UFC shows from the big to small cage. Whatever that percentage is, I'll tell you this, like John said, with heavyweights, you can go ahead and times that by 2 because the finish rates obviously multiply, which is another crazy thing that jumped out to me about this fight with Meeks and Yorgan is that this is the biggest line discrepancy as far as betting lines. Obviously, this has become a very popular show to bet as far as entertainment goes. It's a destination, if you will, and I was seeing upwards of minus 900. It's getting up to 9-1.
And I imagine Alton. I was going to say Alton Meeks.
Yes.
So Yorgan De Castro comes from a very small island nation, Cape Verde, off the coast of Africa. He started training in Portugal and now lives in the United States. He does have a couple of stoppages in those wins, but meanwhile, Meeks, I think he is the top level prospect. One of our newest staffers, Nolan King, I know he likes to put in the work on the Contender Series. When I was talking to him before the show, he was saying, listen, the heavyweight division always needs talent, right? I mean,
yes.
So if you look good at heavyweight, that increases your chances, but he is really high on Alton Meeks, and I think understandably so. 3-0, 3 first-round stoppages, and a wrestling pedigree, right? I mean, he was a high-level Greco-Roman wrestler.
And that was the thing. I didn't know that at first, and if you look at these guys, you're like, okay, well, maybe they'll favor the 4-0 guy. Maybe that's the favorite. And if you look at the 4-0 gentleman, Yorgan, he's pretty bricked up. So if you're doing the old eye test, you would have figured maybe he's the favorite. But don't judge a book by its cover. I think we've learned that a lot at the heavyweight division. Look at guys like a Daniel Cormier. You can't judge a book by its cover there. Now, I guess the question is he going to be like a Daniel Cormier? Now, this guy, Meeks, he was apparently ranked really high, close to representing our country as far as that for Greco-Roman. And Greco-Roman, we've seen from Dan Henderson to Randy Couture, smaller heavyweights, if you will, or light heavyweights in certain cases, able to really make hay, in this division, in this sport with that. So is he going to be like that, John? Or is he going to, and I'm not taking a shot, all due respect, is he going to stick more to the wrestling, maybe more toward like a Jared Rochal styling? And I only bring him up because, let's be honest, style points apply in this format.
Yeah, they definitely do. You can't just win and get in. You got to win and impress. The other thing about Alton Meeks, which I'm kind of impressed to see now, again, he did train at a high level in wrestling, so this might not factor, but he's only been a pro for like less than a year. I think his debut was July. He's only been training full time in the sport for like 18 months. Man, this is a pretty high level stage, a pretty big moment to be on that early in your career, and I wonder if that'll factor. We're already talking about what it feels like inside this building. Add that to the table. It'll be interesting to see how he performs out there.
I am too. It's a different stage. Obviously, we just set up the environment here, and the UFC stage is different than any other. But I went back to watch his first or his second pro fight over in NFC, the other side of the country from where we're at, and I was really impressed because he just didn't waste time. He really got to his bread and butter, and I think at the end of the day, you want to see a guy with that trigger. Mm-hmm. He's not really clouded as far as the strike's coming at my head. No, he knows what he's got to do. So let's see if he can do that tonight.
Interesting. Like I said, Meek's the big favorite there. We'll see how it plays out, but we're going to get heavyweights in the small cage to get it started. Featherweights next up. Bill Algie with a 12-3 record. Brendan Loughnane with the 16-3 record. And I think the really interesting thing here, first, of course, is that they're both veterans. I mean, they both got impressive records, but Brendan Loughnane, a former UFC fighter, he made it to the dance. It was a long time ago, but he did make it to the dance. I think a lot of people are pointing to this fight. In fact, we talked to the guys ahead of time, our Brendan Fitzgerald and Paul Felder as well, and asked them, hey, what do you think about the fight? What's going to be the fight to watch? And they both picked this one as the fight to watch.
Absolutely. It's the name that jumped out for me. I mean, if you've been watching if you watched his first UFC fight against Mike Wilkinson, which, by the way, a loss that he did avenge, this guy's been all over the place, and his name is usually in the win column. Again, he avenged a loss to a UFC vet there. Another loss was a UFC former prospect, granted an early retirement, but a former prospect nonetheless, in Tom Duquesnoy. And if you go back can watch that fight. He almost knocked Duquesnoy out in the first round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this guy's record is really impressive. It speaks for himself, and I'm glad to see these guys get a second shot. As you know, John, featherweight and lightweight are pretty unforgiving. You can get lost in the shuffle real easy.
Yeah, no question about it. Bill Algie, let's talk about him first quickly. A guy that's fighting on the East Coast. As we said, he comes in with a 12-3 record. I think what's most impressive, you look at 11-2 out of his past 13 fights, but the only losses in that time, Jared Gordon, Shane Burgos. Okay, so the fighters that he's lost to are UFC caliber. And I think of course you want to see those UFC wins, but at least if you are suffering losses, you know you're not losing to journeymen along the way. You're losing to guys that mean something, the guys that are accomplishing something in the sport. And I hate to give too much credit to people for like key losses. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to win. You know what I mean? Like, oh, just because you stood in there against this famous person or this accomplished athlete doesn't make you any better. Right. But I think it does show the quality. It's like, look, I'm beating everybody else I'm supposed to, and yes, I've had a couple of issues along the way, but they were against high caliber fighters, and I think that's what he's shown. And Dan, a lot of people that I talk to, especially from that East Coast scene, that regional scene, that are high on that, they say, watch out for Bill.
And that's another thing. I mean, we can harp all day as far as who their losses are, but I don't think that's by coincidence. Kind of like John said, these guys are at this level for a reason. But even looking beyond that, to give these guys credit, you just said it, the promotions, whether it's the Ring of Combats, the CFFCs of the world, when I see that, when I'm breaking down a guy, that weighs heavily, when I'm breaking down what could this guy potentially bring to the table. Has he been tested? Because they don't matchmake as kindly in those organizations, as we know. Certain organizations much harder than others. So much respect there. And by the way, I was perusing on that gentleman's Instagram, and he has some UFC vets in his corner there, like John Doomsday Howard. So I mean, I'm sure he's got veteran ears around him as well, and in the supporting cast.
I should say, by the way, as we talk about these top-level regional organizations that people are coming from in the great proving ground, another thing that UFC President Dana White said is, listen, this UFC Apex, it's not just going to be home to the Contender Series. Like, we're going to bring in, third-party organizations that are interested, and it is great. I think it'll be cool because, they'll have this high-level production facility available to them, but then again, maybe you'll kind of get fighters used to the space and not so nervous about things and not kind of thrown off by it. I think that'll be an added bonus.
We talk about it all the time. I know it was a great experience just for me in general when my few experiences cornering and coaching, because even if you're not competing, you get to kind of walk the paces. And, you interview fighters all the time and they talk about, this may be my UFC debut, but I was in so-and-so's corners for this. I think we're just going to cultivate a lot more of that, what you said.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, listen, we had a chance to speak to Brendan Locke the other day after the weigh-ins. By the way, first Englishman competing on the Contender Series. He was excited about that, but he came in. He looked good, full of energy when he weighed in. Had no problem, and we definitely wanted a chance to speak to him because again, such an interesting story. And here's kind of what he had to say. You're back, right? Almost. What's the feeling like? It's been a long journey to get here. What's the emotion right now?
Do you know what? It feels great, and the same coach I had back then, we're back here together now. 7 years nearly. Didn't give up, and hard work pays off.
Yeah. I wonder, going this route, you could keep fighting and hopefully get the call. Why did you decide to go, no, I'm going to go in the Contender Series? Even though I've been in the UFC before, I'm going to do this.
There was offers for prelims. I could wait out, but I ain't trying to wait no more. I'm getting older. I'm 29 now. I'm in my prime, and a good friend of mine, Dominic Cruz, and my coach, said, this is going to build your audience, and look what it's done already. It's caused a big stir, so thought this would be a better way to go.
Yeah. What's the strategy going in? This is interesting, right? Of course, you got to win, but you got to do so in kind of an impressive fashion, right, to get Dana's attention. So what's the mindset, the strategy going in?
I've come all the way from England. I think I'm the first English guy to do this, breaking ground a bit. I've had massive support from everyone at home, and I'm just going to go in there and do my thing, and I know that I don't really have a bad fight. Even the ones that I've lost have been good fights, so let's do this.
If for some reason the last time anybody saw you was the UFC, what can they expect to see different this time around?
If you see me last time in the UFC, please wipe that blank. This is a brand new Brendan Locke name. This is 7 years, and you're going to see the difference.
All right, so I think that the key thing that I really enjoyed there is that, asking, hey, if this is, if your one UFC appearance is all anybody knew about you, what would you say? Forget about it. Get rid of it. Get that out of your mind. And I think he's got to have that mindset, right? It's so funny. You work back to this point. It's been a 7-year journey for him, but it's not quite done yet. This isn't the dance, right? This is the warm up. This is the appetizer. You still got to get it done. So, Dan, give me an idea. As you're breaking this down, like I said, a lot of people are saying this is the one to watch. you got a good feel for this one, or you're going to have to wait and see?
I think both these gentlemen are going to do the matchmakers a favor, as in, they're not going to make them look bad at the end of the night. I don't think Dana's going to be going to Sean or Mick and go, why did we put these two guys together? Because when you look at it, again, we kind of broke down their background of why they deserve to be here, but from a stylistic standpoint, it's fun because we got the small cage and two guys who like to throw hands. Now, they're both very competent on the ground. Algie, if he's in the clinch, he's not afraid. He'll throw, an Uchimata judo toss at you. He'll work from that top scarf hold position. He looks pretty well trained there. So it's not like, either guy's not going to be able to threaten that one there. But you look at, Algie comes from a kickboxing gym. Brendan's got great kicks if anybody's ever seen him, from leg kicks to spinning back kicks. So I'm expecting a really fun striking match, and the matchmaker should be pretty happy with himself, no matter what the result is.
No doubt. Should be fun. All right, listen, if you're just joining us, John Morgan, Dan Tom, like we said, inside the UFC Apex, the Dana White's Contender Series Season 3, Episode 1, or Dana White's Contender Series 17, depending on how you want to go about it, is getting started at the top of the hour. Again, it'll be on ESPN Plus in the U.S., so if you don't have that membership, make sure you get that. If not, if you're international elsewhere, you can still catch it on UFC Fight Pass. I guess what you would call our co-main event, it's not necessarily laid out that way, but it's our second to last fight. Women's strawweights, you've got the undefeated Hannah Goldy at 4-0, and you've got Callie Robbins at 6-2. Now, listen, you look at them on paper. First of all, I like the fact that Hannah, 24-karat Goldy, by the way, says that her fighting style, she's an entertainer. So that's the thing you definitely got to do, is come in here, entertain. But 4-0. 3-0 under the Island Fights banner, which is an organization that does stream on UFC Fight Pass. So she's kind of getting that televised or streamed experience, if you will, those big moments, understanding what it feels like in the cameras. Also, her professional debut was a win over Jillian Robertson. So that's a big scalp to have on there. We talked about what having key losses, so to speak, wins. That's what key wins definitely mean as well. Meanwhile, Callie Robbins doesn't have the undefeated record. She's got 4-2 record, but the losses that she has, Hannah Seifers, Pearl Gonzalez. So intrigued by this one. Both women at the weigh-ins look to be have good energy, feeling good. And the strawweight division, it's funny for me to say this, because I do feel like the bantamweight division, the women's bantamweight division, starting with Ronda Rousey, and then, of course, it carried through to Miesha Tate, carried through to Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes, now the double champ. I mean, yes, the biggest stars have been in the women's bantamweight division. There's no question about it. But I feel like if you're a fight fan and you're talking about the women's game, the strawweight division is where it's at right now. The depth of talent at strawweight is unbelievable. You nailed it. It's definitely mine and many's favorite, and been so for a while. I mean, I believe since Tough 20, it's firmly held its status, I would argue, in the UFC as far as generating great fights. Now, that's a double-edged sword. We talked about men's featherweight and men's lightweight, John. Mm-hmm. I think women's strawweight, not right now per se, but compared to the other women's divisions, I feel like they're going to face a similar problem, because it's so good for us means it's much more competitive for the fighters. It usually tends to work out that way. But I really like this matchup too. Something I was noticing about Callie, she comes from Eric Red. Again, it's funny. I don't think it's coincidence that John Howard's in this guy's corner. She treads under another UFC vet, Eric the Red Schaefer. And if we know anything about Red Schaefer, that guy knows his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, real tough, and she's ranked a brown belt. But again, another thing that's interesting, even though we don't know a lot, at least I don't know a lot about Goldie's opponents. You mentioned Jillian Robertson. We've seen what she can do off her back. She is no joke. So I think that's going to be good training primer, experience primer, if you will, for Goldy. Yeah, it's interesting too, because as you said earlier, it's not just about winning fights, right? I mean, the whole premise here is you get to fight in front of the UFC president and the matchmakers, of course, who have a lot of input as well, but you got to impress them. And it's easy when somebody comes in and has a 15-second knockout or something like that, you know right away that their chances are probably pretty darn good, right? Because they probably impressed everybody, the whole crowd went, and again, I don't like the cliche or the easy statement of like, well, the women don't have power, the flyweights don't have power. I mean, we see it all the time. We see a Jessica Andrade slam, we see knockouts in the men's flyweight division. So I'm not saying that a quick finish is impossible here, because it is possible. Anything can happen in a fight, and that's what's fun about the sport. But I do wonder if it's almost more challenging for the strawweights to leave a lasting impression, because you can't. I don't want to say you can't have a close fight. I am wondering if one day if there'll be a Griffin Bonner type fight, where it's like, it was so good, even though you lost, you get in. We haven't seen it yet. It's only been winners. But I do wonder if it's a little more challenging for these women's strawweights, especially, that might not have the finishing rate, again, as a whole. I'm not isolating these women. Right. to get that impression enough to get the UFC deal?
Boy, that's a great point. Now, I don't know if you want to share that point with them even before they go out there today, John.
No.
But
they're in the locker room. They're not watching the stream.
But it's an interesting point because we've seen it. It's no secret. Dana likes that first round knockout. And, I do an article with MMA Junkie called Grading the Winners, and I'd be lying if those guys aren't going to get an A. I will say this, though, and I hope, we see maybe matchmakers and Dana's attitude toward this change, especially if we have a Griffin versus Bonner scenario, like you said, or something close, where I kind of reserve the A+ for somebody that has to overcome adversity and make that adjustment. Now, you look at the lighter weight classes, and not to pick on the females, but for example, the strawweights tonight, you could say, well, statistically and mathematically, their finishing percentages won't be as high. But that length can give them to adjust and show more because, like you said, it's not a popular viewpoint, but I'm a big fan of being a healthy skeptic when a guy comes out there and ices someone. I didn't learn much about them. I want to see the ring time. So hopefully that attitude is adopted more, but that's my attitude, silver lining toward it.
It's interesting, man, because I agree with you. I think sometimes I feel like I know more about a fighter when they're pushed to the limit, when I see them overcome some adversity, to battle through that. But is that enough to get them in? Who knows? The other thing too about strawweights is I do feel like it's the deepest division in the UFC in terms of the women's divisions right now. So for these girls to come in, for either one of them to get a UFC deal, there's not a lot of gimme. I mean, there's no gimme fights in the UFC, let's be honest, but there's not a lot of fights at the bottom of the division where you go, I'll just ease my way in right away.
That's very true. I mean, top to bottom, really. I mean, even you look at some of the more memorable fights in this division. They're not. It's not because they have a ranking next to their name. I mean, you look at girls like Lucia Pujilova, or I believe that's actually a 135er. But a lot of these strawweights from the ones that come off the reality show. And we know all the everyone hates on fighters that have come off that reality show, but they've stood the test of time in the division. And the new ones like Jillian Robertson's, ones we've mentioned that have come from similar scenes, are really only impressing.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, it is interesting to see how many Contender Series veterans have made immediate impacts in the UFC. So, listen, all right, let's talk about our main event, if you will. It's a middleweight bout. Puna Haley, if you want to go the full route. But I think everybody around Extreme Couture in Las Vegas just calls him Puna. Jamie Pickett as well with a 9-3 record. A big middleweight fight here. And I guess one that I think a lot of people are key on. We're going to be a little bit biased here. We live in Las Vegas. I know you spend time training at Extreme Couture. But so, I mean, let's not necessarily talk winners and losers, but maybe let's just talk about the reputation that Soriano has, because I think in the gym, among those, it's not just people that are just kind of big up in him or whatever. I mean, you're always going to find a coach that's like, I got the next big thing. But a lot of people, I think, felt like Puna was kind of well on his way to the UFC anyway. He certainly got, he's part of Dominance MMA Management, so he's got the connections there, what have you. But I think a lot of people felt that he was kind of on his way anyway. He stepped in here. I mean, are you looking at Puna as a sure thing?
It's going to be tough between, being Hawaiian myself and training at Extreme Couture. You probably could just
you're
forget,
totally biased.
You can forget anything I'm going to say about Puna. But yes, kind of like what John was alluding to, he doesn't get certain nicknames and reputations around the gym or in the cage when it's fight time for nothing. And I would argue that the public is supporting that opinion. It's not like you said, everybody's going to big up everybody, at this level. That's kind of the name of the game, and you have to be. But, as far as putting your money where your mouth is, I saw Puna as upwards as a 3-1 favorite, which is a lot of respect, considering his opponent has technically been on this stage, even though not this exact stage, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, listen, we did have a chance to speak to Puna after the weigh-ins yesterday as well, just to kind of give his thoughts, ask him why he was taking this path. Again, a lot of people think he could have just kind of sat around and waited for the call and that it was coming, but he said he wanted to be here, and this is what he told us. Man, you've been working towards this goal for a long time right now. It feels like right on the cusp of it. What's the emotion? What's the feeling like right now?
Honestly, I'm feeling everything. I'm so nervous. I'm so excited. I'm so happy, but I'm just trying to keep everything composed, trying to stay calm, and just, try to stay composed.
Yeah. I think a lot of people felt like you were destined for the UFC at some point anyway, right? So why take this opportunity? Why take this risk, I would say, by coming in and trying to do it here?
If you watch my fights, I feel like I'm just a risky guy in general. I just fight crazy. So why not? It fits my style. And it's a good opportunity to kick down the door and get in there.
Beautiful new facility you guys will be fighting in. Have you had a chance to go sneak over there and get a feel? Because it's going to be weird, right? I mean, walking into a building that nobody's ever seen.
I actually got to take a sneak peek yesterday. It was crazy. I was actually a little scared going in there. I had the chills. I couldn't control it. So it was actually nice to get a sneak peek before the fight.
Nice. As far as the fight itself, I mean, you got to win, but you got to win in a way that gets Dana's attention, right? So give me an idea. What's the strategy? Does it change? Does it affect the way you go into the fight tomorrow?
No. I'm just gonna fight the same way I do every fight. I try to put it on my opponents from start to finish, and it usually turns out pretty spectacular. So I'm gonna just keep trying to do the same thing.
All right, so that was Puneet Soriano. As you can feeling confident, feeling relaxed, feeling loose. I don't think that there's pressure necessarily of having expectations. I think probably just a lot of confidence, man. I think a lot of people believe in him. I think he believes in himself.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think he's got, a healthy group of people around him, not just experience, which obviously, comes across and at a high value at this game at this stage, but just good, healthy-minded people too, because, especially as a fighter, it's so mental. You got enough pressure on this stage, performing in front of the boss man, if you will, or who you hope for your boss man to be. You don't need any extra pressure. So I like where his head's at.
All right, let's talk about Jamie Pickett. As you said, he's been on this stage before. As you said, not exactly this stage, but he's been to this level and it didn't work out for him. I mean, give me an idea what you think, because it is weird, right? Like, does that matter? Does that impact? Is it positive? Is it negative? Do you take good things out of it? Do you take bad things out of it? I mean, as a fighter, how do you think that previous experience affects your mindset?
I got to imagine it's a good thing. We've seen certain fighters have their second hand or their second try and make it worthwhile, even if they have to wait, from 2017 and wait to come back to 2018 to do it. We not just stack up wins, but as far as their mentality, when you listen to these guys in interviews, it almost seems like they're more motivated. Not only are they not discouraged, they're more motivated, and I expect that here for Pickett. Especially his last fight was pretty competitive. Sure, he lost to Charles Byrd, but Charles Byrd's no slouch, and he's been doing pretty good in the UFC.
Yeah. Listen, I think Pickett had a lot of great energy as well. We did have a chance to speak with him briefly, and he was in good spirits. In fact, he was so nice, he actually took a picture with me. He said he couldn't wait to meet me. What a nice guy that guy is, huh? Kind of makes me cheer for him a little bit.
There you go. Yeah.
Here's what he had to say. Give me an idea what the emotion's like right now. I mean, your career started out in a weird way, but you've been on a great run, and now you're on the cusp of the UFC. What's the feeling like right now?
I feel happy. Relaxed. And I feel like everything's just coming together right now for me.
Yeah. Kind of the main event, right? I mean, I know it's not exactly how it's looked at, but it is. It's the featured fight against a well-respected prospect as well in Puna. What do you feel when you were given this opportunity, know you're getting this responsibility? Did it add to the moment at all?
It did. Fighting somebody that's undefeated. Good guy, very nice guy. I met him. A lot of attributes. Never lost. To go out there and take that from him. Somebody's dream has to be crushed, and I'm not going to let it be mine.
You guys are getting to kind of christen this new multi-million-dollar facility as well. I mean, the Tough Gym was great, but I haven't even seen this new place yet. It's supposed to be amazing. So give me an idea, like, have you checked it out? What do you think it's going to be like being in there?
I saw it, and I was so happy. I was like, oh, my God, this thing is so nice. State of the art. I mean, they went all out for this thing. And I'm just happy to be the main event, first main event, for all the other UFC fighters are coming up. First main event in that facility is a big deal.
Yeah. Give me the idea of the strategy. I mean, you got to win, right? But you got to impress Dana as well to get that contract. So how does that change your approach, your game plan, your strategy? What's the idea going in?
My idea is being me. Last time I came here, I threw a 2-day notice. I didn't train. I just came and fought. And I had to do what I didn't want to do, try to win the fight. I gassed out. This time, I'm in shape. I'm trained. And y'all going to see a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff.
All right, so listen, speaking with Pickett, he felt incredibly relaxed to me. He was saying the right things. Like I said, he was in great spirits. I certainly don't feel like he thinks he's some big underdog or that he was brought here to lose to Puna. I think he feels like a very, very live chance at impressing and kind of righting the wrong, so to speak, the first time around. Okay, we said it. You're Hawaiian. You train Extreme Couture. You can't make an unbiased prediction. So let's just say like this. How do we know if this fight is playing out in Puna's favor? I mean, obviously if he wins in 20 seconds, we know it's playing out. But right. What do we need to look for to know who's dictating, who's having the advantage in this fight?
Yeah, I feel like as cliche as it is, with someone like Puna's style, it's really moved forward. I mean, you said it, not just getting quick finishes as a pro. I mean, you go back and look at Puna's amateur record, and I don't think any of those fights got out of the first round either. So this is something deeply rooted in him. And, if I'm being honest and unbiased and critical even, that kind of makes me nervous, no matter the guy, when he hasn't gone past that round. I feel like, as long as, he's not too gassed or hurt, Pickett's confidence has to skyrocket if he sees that second round. He's a tricky southpaw, so we're going to see how many southpaws Puna's been training with and how effective. I don't know how many of those guys were southpaws, but I guarantee you not many. You don't come across that many, and they can be kind of stylistic foils we've seen, even at the higher level. So that's kind of what I'm going to look for, how he deals with that.
Yeah, all right, listen, it's intriguing, right? There's 4 fights tonight. There's not 5, so there's more of a chance. I can tell you right now, UFC President Dana White is in a phenomenal mood. I mean, he's been walking around here showing off the facility. He's proud. I mean, this place is incredible. I mean, you can't, whether you want to be a UFC hater or not, man, you can't sit back and say that this is not amazing. Nobody could walk through this facility and not say that this is as state-of-the-art as it comes. He's in a great mood. So I wonder how that factors into tonight. I mean, could this be one of those where he's just like, Oprah Winfrey throwing out contracts out there? You all get a contract. I mean, what do you say? Would you got an over-under on anything tonight on how many deals we see?
You know what? I think we can always guess this better as we get deeper in, because we can almost chalk up, okay, he went over this night, he's probably not going over this night. I think Vegas odds, if they were to put odds on that angle, John, I think it's got to be the highest on opening night, right? I mean,
think so.
No one's had a chance to mess anything up yet. Not to think so negatively, but it's true. You never know what mood, forget Dana, anyone, we've all worked for someone before, you got to be careful when you ask for that raise. But, on a night when they're feeling festive, there's something to celebrate, like tonight, it's a debut. I think they're the best chances for tonight.
And I think the further we go in the seasons, the more the matchmakers start telling Dana, like, slow down, bro. You understand? I have to get all these people fights. Like, it's not like we just put them on the roster. Then we got to find spots for them. So, I'm interested to see. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, listen, I think even us among the media who are being unbiased will say that, like, the Dana White's Contender Series, these are fun events. I mean, the Ultimate Fighter, God bless it. It did its thing. Let's drive a stake through the heart of it. I mean, this is the future. Now we get to see it in this building. I'm amped up about it. So I think we're going to have a good night. We're going to see it in this new building, the UFC Apex again. They'll be right back on these chairs afterwards. Only 4 chairs, not 5. We'll see who will get it. This is the kitchen now. But again, ESPN Plus at the top of the hour. We're going to sign off here in just a minute. But last thoughts from you, Dan, Tom? How are you feeling right now?
I'm excited. I mean, I love this series since its inception in 2017, and this really does take it to a new level. Again, very cliche to say, but trust me, folks, if you saw it, you're going to see that it does get taken to a new level, and hopefully it comes across that way on this production, because I was really impressed with everything I saw today.
Yeah, no question. You'll have a grading the winners piece on MMA Junkie tomorrow?
Absolutely. The day after, you guys can find that every time. Make that your destination.
All right, so he'll have all those. We hope we'll be continuing this along the way. You let us know if you enjoyed it. Hit us up on Twitter. Leave us some comments, whatever. Let us know if you liked this. So we'll try to do more of this. Again, Dana White's Contender Series kicks off. It's on ESPN Plus, not UFC Fight Pass. If you're in the U.S., ESPN Plus. Everywhere else, it's